Welcome to the Unicorn Millionaire Podcast, where we celebrate financial empowerment and pride all year long. I'm your host, Charly Stoever, a non-binary Latinx money coach who's traveled solo to over 34 countries while helping my first-gen LGBTQIA+ and BIPOC community invest in the stock market and themselves. From my journey as a formerly undocumented Mexican American to diving into the world of finance as a stockbroker, I've learned firsthand the importance of financial independence and how you can be anti-capitalist while investing. I said what I said. Through my podcast, I share empowering stories and drop gems on gems, from how to be a Roth IRA freak to buying your first home. I started this podcast because I didn't see anybody like me talking about how to take advantage of capitalism. Whether you're tuning in for financial wisdom, wellness tips, or just to hear about my travels, I keep it real, fabulous, and magical. Subscribe to the Unicorn Millionaire Podcast and leave me a 5-star review. We're here, we're queer, and we're building wealth juntos, juntas, y juntes. Let's get into it. All right. Hey, y'all. How's it going? I'm Traveler Charly. I'm a non-binary Latinx money coach helping LGBT BIPOC folks crush debt and help them build a 6-figure retirement without needing a 6-figure salary. And today I was supposed to go live with Texas State Representative Linda Garcia to talk about breaking quorum, but she had to reschedule for next week. So I decided to still hop on and do an Instagram live about how I am intentionally paying off $12K in business credit card debt. And you do not need a business to benefit from this Freudian slip from this conversation, but it's going to be beneficial for you, whether you've had debt or not, you are swimming in debt, or you might go into debt eventually, because I never had debt until I started a business. So I had to do a lot of mindset work around destigmatizing debt and removing the shame for myself when it came to leveraging debt, using debt to grow my business. If it weren't for debt, I would not have been able to have a business and grow a business as much as I have. So debt has been essential for me to have a business. And I'm talking more and more about debt lately, even though for me, it wasn't something that was very fun or sexy, honestly, to talk about. I love talking about investing. I also don't like talking about budgeting. To me, budgeting is so boring. But people need to know the basics. If it weren't for my ability to budget, if it weren't for my ability to manage debt, I would not be able to have $200,000 invested in my net worth without ever having made more than $45,000 at the 9-to-5. So I'm going back to the basics more and more so that you can build the building blocks without the basics of being able to budget, keep your expenses low, increase your income, and manage your debt. When will you even be able to think about investing for retirement? So I just think it's funny that as soon as I started talking about debt, I've become a debt expert. I've already been featured in Bankrate, which is an online money publication, to talk about debt, not once, but twice already this year. So I am claiming that I'm a debt expert and finding the fun in talking about it. But I think it's really important, before we start off talking about debt, to just talk about the emotional weight of it and how people feel about debt. But at the end of the day, all debt is you paying to borrow money because you don't have the ability to pay for something, whether it's a car, a house, gym membership up front. So you borrow money with the idea that eventually you'll get that money back in order to pay off your debt in full. Or you might have the money, but, which is kind of what I'm going to talk about from my experience, you have the money, but you're choosing to grow your money on the side instead of throwing it at the debt. So those are two reasons why people don't pay off their debt. They might be able to, but they don't. Also because they might feel ashamed, or they might identify too much with the debt and be like, well, I don't know what it's like to not be in debt, and this is who I am. which I don't think is talked about enough, but that can definitely be part of people's identity where it can freak them out to finally crush tens of thousands of dollars in loans, even though they could have this whole time because they don't know who they are without it. And letting go of your past self means letting go of past parts of yourself that weighed you down. And it can be scary because something that's familiar, like being debt-free, if it's unfamiliar, it can be scary. Your brain isn't trying to keep you happy, it's trying to keep you comfortable. So I think that it's really important before we talk about the nuts and bolts of debt and all that to just think about how debt makes you feel. And when you think about the word debt, how does it feel in your body? Is it heavy? Is it light? For me, it's still heavy, honestly. And yeah, I think it's time for me to talk about the debt that I'm in, which even just when I say that, I feel a tinge of shame and like, oh no, how could I be in debt? I'm a money coach that has helped so many people crush tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. But that's just because of societal conditioning. That's why I feel still the shame against debt, even though I have literally been interviewed on how I'm a boss with debt and how intentional I am with debt. I have been in online publications. I have been on YouTube channels and podcasts talking about how I leverage debt like a boss, but there still is that shame that's tied to it. That's just important to notice and recognize instead of identifying it with it and letting it consume you. Because if you do that, then you won't be able to make debt your bitch and leverage it in order to build wealth. So I'm going to talk about how I'm being intentional about paying off 12K in debt. So right now, one of my business credit cards, the Capital One Spark business card, has about 11.7K in debt. And the reason why I have not paid off this card in full, even though there is enough of my money in my business bank account to wipe that debt off entirely, is because I don't want to drain my savings. I don't want to resent my business. And that's something that so many people do. So many people start businesses, but they have too many expenses, or they hire too quickly, or they have all these fancy nuts and bolts and invest in the logo and all these things when they should just be focusing on bringing in money. Because if you have a business, you need to be making money. You're not a nonprofit. If you're a business, you need to make sales and generate income in order to be profitable and keep the lights on and hopefully not just survive, but thrive as a business owner. Like my business has helped me max out my Roth IRA every year. And it's also helped me fund a 3-month solo trip through Europe where I went to 9 countries in 3 months. And I'm currently pet sitting in Portland without paying rent, so that I'm able to save the money that I would use toward rent to retire early and put in my investments instead. So, yeah, I also have not fully paid off this business credit card, even though I've put lots of money. I've invested, last year I invested about $10,000 in business coaching programs, which were well worth it. I like tripled, 4x, 5x my investment already from both of those business coaching programs because I did the work and I see it as an investment. These coaching programs are not cheap. One was like $8,000, another was $2,500, but I've made like 50K in sales since enrolling in those programs in it's October of last year. And so I've made sales, but I've been able to use that money to put a combined $13,000 in my retirement account so far this year. And I've been paying off the minimum on this card. I also have not paid it off in full because I took out the Capital One Spark card knowing that I would have a 0% intro APR for an entire year. And that sounds like a dream come true, because it is, especially for these credit card companies, because they have time on their side to lend you money for years with the hope that after the year kicks in, you'll have racked up all of this debt and that you won't have a strategy or won't even keep track of when the interest kicks in. And then you're going to pay lots of money on these predatory credit card interest fees, especially the higher balance you have with a 20, 25, 30% interest rate. That's going to be hundreds of dollars a month and thousands in their pockets too. So that's why it's important to, whenever you see a sexy bonus intro offer of make 3K when you spend make $300 when you spend $3K in the first 3 months, or 0% APR. You always want to think of, why is this credit card company offering this? What is their business model and what's in it for them? And how can I not fall into that trap? So I took out this Capital One card along with the Amex Blue business card, but I paid off that card in full. I put thousands in expenses for FinCon in Atlanta to get the bonus intro offer for that one, but I don't have any balance on that Amex business card because it didn't have a 0% APR. So they were charging me interest. So that's what I was doing. I was still using my other business credit cards, but since the interest wasn't free, since I was paying to borrow money, I crushed that debt, and I don't owe balances on any credit cards that are not 0% APR credit cards. But on this Capital One card, it's coming up on almost a year that the 0% interest rate is going to kick in. I took out the Capital One card in September, knowing that I would use it to pay for my expensive thousands of dollars in coaching programs, and that I wouldn't ignore the debt, but I would pay a couple hundred here and there. But lately, the last couple of months, I'm just paying the minimums. But that doesn't mean that when the interest kicks in, that I'm just going to ignore the debt and hope it magically goes away and that I'll win the lottery, or that somebody will save me, because no one is coming to save you and clear your debt. You are coming here to save yourself and be intentional and informed so that nobody has to save you. So you can help yourself and hopefully help others live their best lives, because that is what money does. It helps you live your best life and helps alleviate human suffering and level up your joy. So at the time of the recording of this episode, we are in mid-August, and something that I did yesterday was that, since I wasn't sure when the interest would kick in, and I wasn't sure how much interest I would be charged, since I haven't been paying interest at all on this Capital One card, I thought, okay, so I have almost $12,000 in debt on this card, but this 0% interest promo is not going to last forever. So I need to find out when it's going to kick in and what the interest rate is going to be, because you should be on top of all your interest rates if you are leveraging debt, because that is the price you're paying every day to borrow money, is the interest rate. That number is huge. It's so important. And that's something that I help all my clients rein in and realize what their interest rates are. None of my clients know what their interest rates really are at the top of their head until they work with me. And then we get all the interest rates just so that they're more informed about all their numbers, instead of being fearful and avoidant, because being fearful and avoidant is lenders' business models. That is how they profit off you, by lending you money and hoping you are fearful and avoidant of it. So that's more money in their pockets every day. They have no interest in you crushing your debt and being on top of it, because when you do that, they're not making money off of you. So, and I love doing what the lenders don't want you to do, is pay them, pay their debt off completely. So, and I know a lot of millennials have like phone anxiety and they're scared about making calls, but it's just like, you got to bite the bullet and think of it as, this call is really only going to be 5 minutes. As somebody who definitely does not enjoy making phone calls to customer service and being on hold, you just gotta, you really just gotta bite the bullet and make that phone call, and it won't be as bad as you think. So I called the phone number at the back of the Capital One card, knowing that, dang, Capital One really isn't sending me emails telling me, hey, Charly, just so you know, you're about to start paying hundreds of dollars in interest on this day. They don't want you to know this. They're not notifying you that your 0% APR for a year offer is ending soon. They don't want you to know this, because, like I keep saying, they don't want you to be on top of paying off your debt. So it was up to me to take initiative and call them and ask. So I spoke to a representative and I asked, when does the 0% bonus APR offer end on this Capital One card? And she had to look it up. And then she told me the 0% offer is going to end on September 24th. Okay, so I'm going to put in on my calendar on September 24th to start really aggressively paying off this Capital One card instead of just paying off the minimum. Because these companies, When you are getting charged an APR, they want you to just pay the minimum because that's going to be more and more money in their pockets down the line. Because, like I've said, they have time on their side. They are borrowing money to lend you money at a way lower interest rate than they're charging you for it. They're not borrowing money at a 25, 30% interest rate. They're probably borrowing money at a 1% interest rate because they're big banks. So that's why, as somebody who is on top of my personal business finances, it's really important for me to understand the time value of money and just being aware of deadlines, because I don't want to pay these companies any more than I need to, but I also don't want to give them a cash advance. I don't want to give them this money that could just be sitting and making money in my high yield savings account while I wait for the 0% APR to end. So when I found out that this APR is going to kick in on September 25th, I thought, okay, so I still have about a month to keep my cash savings in my high yield savings account, where so far, just by having it in the right account, I have my high yield savings at CIT Bank, and that's where I help all my clients open these accounts because they're free high yield savings accounts. They're federally insured, and they don't charge you like minimums for not having enough money, like crappy Wells Fargo or all those other big banks. And they have astronomically higher interest rates, where instead of getting like 0.02 at Bank of America, you're getting 4% interest. And yes, it fluctuates, but that's still not a reason not to open a high yield savings account, because your interest rate in your crappy checking account is also fluctuating from 0.02 to 0.01. I'm surprised that hasn't gone into the negative yet. But that's the beautiful thing about banks in the US, is that you actually make money from interest. I remember opening a bank account in Mexico and I was shocked, and I was like, what's the interest rate? They're like, you don't get interest. You don't make money. What? I was like, oh, this is a very special American thing. So as a dual Mexican American citizen, that's one of the few things I like about the US, is that you actually make money for having your money sit there. But it's also not making money because your money is losing value to inflation. Even if you do get, like I got that $200 back, that's just keeping pace with inflation, where the value of a dollar is going down over time and it won't stop. Like in 1950, it cost you 2 cents to buy eggs. Now in the year 2025, it costs $15 to buy eggs. That is because of inflation. And no, it's not going to get better. It's just that things will keep getting more and more expensive, but the rate at which things get more and more expensive fluctuates, but things will not get cheaper. They will have only gotten more expensive, and they will only get more expensive because of inflation. So the only way to outpace inflation is to invest in the stock market, which is why I have most of my money invested in the stock market. Somebody who's never made more than, well, I paid myself 47K last year. That was the most I've ever paid myself. That's why I invest aggressively in the stock market, to outpace inflation. For me, it's not a huge priority to like pay myself a lot of money, because I like staying in a low tax bracket. So that when I do sell stock, I don't pay any taxes on it because I'm in such a low tax bracket, because I'd rather just invest my money and have it grow itself in other ways, or I'd rather invest money into my business. I'm about to invest like $12,000 in another business coaching program at the end of the month too. So I do not keep all the money that I make in sales at all. So that's why debt comes in handy too, so that I don't have to try to hold on to all the money I make, all the sales I make. No, I can put money in a card. I can sell some stock. I have all these different levers to pull that I can be intentional with, instead of just freezing and shutting down my business because I don't know how to manage my money, and then going back to a 9-to-5 job I hate. Like, catch me never. People ask me how I'm so motivated to work for myself, and I'm just like, I love not working for condescending white men. That is enough motivation for me to not try to go back to the 9-to-5. I remember trying to like interview for 9-to-5 jobs 2 years ago, but in the interview process, I was like, I hate that I have to code switch or talk in like in a jargony way, like a 9-to-5 way, that I was like, nah, my business is it. Sure, it can be challenging, but I'd rather work for my first and only trans, queer, Latinx boss, which is me. So yeah, back to the Capital One customer service call. I called them. I wrote down when the interest is going to start kicking in. And I also ask them, okay, but what's the interest rate going to be? Also, not something that they tell you proactively. So this is why you have to know what questions to ask. And this is something I help all my clients do. I helped one client find $141,000 in an old 401k that was just sitting there for like 15 years because I helped her get her finances together and make those phone calls that you're probably dreading to make. But I can tell you that they are worth it. You don't lose anything by calling and asking. And so I feel like that's a reason why a lot of people don't roll over their 401ks, or they know that they should call and ask things, but they don't know what to ask and they don't want to feel stupid. So that's something that I eliminate in my coaching. You're not going to feel stupid because I will let you know what questions to ask. And I've also had clients call customer service while on Zoom with me so that I'm right there for them, because it can be intimidating calling customer service when you don't have my money coach juiciness there holding your hand every step of the way. So that's what I did. I called, I asked when the 0% interest would end, the date, and I wrote down the interest rate, which I was kind of shocked. It was only 20.24%. I was thinking it was going to be 25%, but that tells me that my business credit is pretty good. Because when your credit score is good and you're diligent with payments, you get rewarded with cheaper money. You get rewarded with a lower interest rate. So when you're borrowing money, you want the lowest interest rate possible. You want the lowest price for your money. So I was surprised, honestly, that it was that much. But so what I'm going to do in order to stop just paying the minimums on September 25th is I'm going to just plug the numbers into, you can just Google any debt payoff calculator. I think I've used the ones on Bankrate. It's a credit card payoff calculator that I help my clients with all the time. So instead of just wondering, oh, maybe I should pay $1,000 this month and maybe 500 this month, no, you plug in your balance. So I'm going to plug in my 11.7K balance and the interest rate, the 20.24% interest rate. And then I can put in how much a month would I need if I want to crush the debt in 3 months? Is it going to be 4K or so a month? And I like plugging those numbers into the calculator so that you can see how much in interest you will pay. That is a big light bulb switch for a lot of my clients when I walk them through those debt payoff calculators for the first time. The longer you drag it out, the more interest you'll pay off. So if I were to drag off this 12K payoff for 2 years, I would probably end up paying $5,000 in interest instead of just crushing it in 3 months. So that's something that I'm going to do. And that's what I'm doing to manage my debt as somebody who's never been in debt until, I was like 32 until I opened a business. I was never really in debt. I was always a saver who paid off my credit cards in full and all of that. And I went to college on a huge financial aid package. So I was very debt averse, but then I've had to learn how to shift my mindset around it and treat it as a way to scale and grow my business. And so that's something that I'm passionate about, that I have to remind myself is a gift that I have to destigmatize debt, because I still feel shame around it. I know all these business owners still feel shame around having debt, because we don't all have Jeff Bezos' dad that can just give us a $200,000 check to fund our businesses. And that's a point of pride that I have not taken a dime from white men venture capital funding, that I can claim all the money in sales that I make. Yes, it's a lot of work, but being able to leverage credit cards and get thousands of dollars in free money from these bonus intro offers, and being able to delay interest payments by getting these 0% APR offers and making hundreds of dollars in interest instead on the side, instead of giving these banks a cash advance on money that they don't need yet because they're not charging me for it. That's how I'm going to retire early. And that is how I've been able to grow my business and reach year 5 as a full-time, fully self-funded business owner since starting my business in 2020. So yeah, I think that's something really big to celebrate. So I hope this podcast episode has helped you remove the shame around debt and start seeing it as something that you can leverage and use to grow your business. Because millionaires, billionaires, they borrow money all the time. They take out mortgages, they take out debt, even though they could technically pay off all their mortgages easily. they don't, because they know that they can grow that money instead on the side. So that is how you can have that millionaire mindset around that payoff that I'm already incorporating at that 200K level that I'm going to continue to use. So that's not a bad thing as long as you're intentional about it. And if you need help crushing your debt so that you can think about retirement, I am taking one-on-one money coaching clients. So you can book a call at the link in the show notes. I would love to walk you through all of it, hold your hand, look at all your interest rate, and start prioritizing debt, because you might have credit card debt here, student loan debt here that you haven't looked at. It's really important not just to think, oh, well, the credit cards have the highest interest rate, so I need to pay off those first. Not always. I've had some clients who have a really high student loan balance, even though the interest rate is lower than on the credit card, and their interest payments are higher. So I'll help you figure out and prioritize which type of debt to pay off first so that you can finally crush that debt and be more intentional and smarter about debt if you choose to, in the future, go into debt intentionally, like through a mortgage. If buying a property is something that you actually want to do and not something that you think you should do because your parents told you that real estate is the only way to build wealth, because it's not passive at all. Investing in the stock market is way more passive than real estate. You just click buttons and go to sleep. But if you do want to buy a property, I'll help you boost your credit score as well so that you can get that better interest rate. And I will help you give every dollar direction and help you better understand where to save that cash. Because too many of y'all have money in crappy checking accounts. You don't know where to have your cash, or you have too much cash and not enough invested, or you have too much invested and not enough cash when you're trying to buy a house. So it really, I love what I do. I love my coaching because it is tailored to your unique situation. The cost of living where you live comes into play. Do you live with other people? Do you live alone? Your income, are you debt-free or not? All of these factors affect your customized plan in 6-month coaching. So yeah, this was a good episode. Also, if you have not joined my Crush Debt Retire Early emails, get in on that. My emails are so juicy. I send a fuck ton of emails and people love them. I have a 13 times better unsubscribe rate than the average because my emails are so good. And I love getting y'all's reply backs from how much you love my emails. So yeah, get on my list so you can learn how to build a 6-figure retirement without needing a 6-figure salary. And if you're interested in getting started and you don't want to delay anymore now that the year is wrapping up, we're in Q4 almost, but you don't want to wait until the holiday season craziness to get your money right while everybody else is last minute doing everything, then let's get a head start on your money now so you can end the year from a calm place. Sip your champagne or non-alcoholic beverage of choice, like for me, CBD drink on New Year's, instead of wondering what you should have done with your HSA or FSA or 401k, all that. So I got you. All right, have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you so much for listening and dropping into today's episode. If you want to connect with me and work one-on-one on your money goals, I invite you to book a call to learn more about how I can help you with my money coaching program. I work with folks one-on-one, long-term, so that you can twerk your way to early retirement. I also want to invite you, if you haven't yet, to join my Unicorn Millionaire newsletter. I love dropping money gems through my newsletter right to your inbox, and I share my latest updates and invites to my free personal finance classes. What is better than that? And getting them from an MB who is queer and can't stop, won't stop talking about that Roth IRA freak life. So get that juicy goodness at the link in the show notes, and don't forget to visit my blog, unicornmillionaire.com, and come twerk along with me on Instagram at Traveler Charly. That's Traveler Charly with a Y, because you know that's how they spell it down in Mexico. The information contained in the Unicorn Millionaire Podcast is provided for general informational use only. Your purchase, download, and use of this material does not constitute a client relationship. The views expressed by the Unicorn Millionaire Podcast, hosts and guests are not intended to constitute accountant, legal, tax, certified financial planner, stock advisor, or other professional advice. Users of this podcast material should not act upon this information. Users of this podcast material should do their own due diligence by independently verifying all information, products, and services mentioned with their own qualified professionals before making any decisions. We assume no responsibility for information contained in the Unicorn Millionaire Podcast and disclaim all liability with respect to errors, inaccuracies, omissions, misleading, or defamatory statements. Users of this podcast accept and understand the terms of the disclaimer.